now joined by Gauteng Provincial Government Spokesperson Vuyo Mhaga. Vuyo, good evening. Thank you very much for joining us on Full View.
Thank you very much for having me.
No, it's a pleasure to have you with us. Firstly, your reaction to that judgment today, where the blame has now been placed squarely at the doorstep of Mr. Esidimeni and Dr. Manamela.
Well, I think the Premier is quite pleased that the matter is coming to the end. But I think it's what the family really also wanted to know in terms of the accountability. And we continue to sympathize with them. We've been meeting with them throughout the process to make sure some of the steps that the former Deputy Chief Justice said we must do, we are actually implementing them. But we are also relieved that at least there is some progress on the matter.
Now, just for the benefit of those who might not have followed throughout what was stated by the judge insofar as the steps that you had to implement, just talk us through them, what you've been able to do thus far.
Well, what we have done is really to make sure that we work with the private sector that are accredited. We have got the medical review board that is full of experts, lawyers, doctors, the psychiatrists and all that, but also to expand the infrastructure in terms of our hospitals and the beds, and to make sure that also we ring-fence some of the money to make sure that it actually deals with that. But importantly, also the awareness within the community about really the mental cases that are obviously engulfing our society, including in schools and everywhere else.
Now, this element of accountability might be dispensed with, although the journey continues because it's now up to the NPA.
Indeed.
But the element of compensation is now a big one, because we've seen reports that there are still families of victims that are looking to take the government of Gauteng to court over that constitutional damages matter. What is the status thereof?
No, if you remember the Deputy Chief Justice then, Dikgang Seneka, there were about 134 patients that needed to be compensated. Those ones were compensated, about 159,460,000. So that was done. But we also went a step further to say there will be other cases beyond the commission at the time. And indeed, there were other cases. And according to the Act, is that the 50% payment that has already been done to the families, and the other 50% is within the trust, and it is within the ambits of the law, that then the trust fund must be there so that it can continue to assist, the patients in that case.
Can you explain a bit further around this 50%? What was decided for this second group, as you state? Because we spoke to one parent who did say that they were actually part of the first group, but they don't know how their name fell into the second. Nevertheless, they did state that there is this new regime that they've all had to enter into, where 50% is paid and another is held in trust. What exactly was the rationale there, and how does it work?
Well, I think it's according to the Act that obviously is the money that it must not, it must look after the needs of obviously of the patients, not necessarily to go to the family and then it actually possibly ends and you actually don't have any money for the needs that will be needed for the particular patient. So it is within that, and also in terms of the legal advice, that's a route that we must basically do when we actually deal with the second batch.
And then are there any out of the second batch who have not received a cent? Because it seems that some of them say they haven't received.
No, as far as we know, they are none. Actually, we even went out to say that if there are people who still, who have not received anything, they must actually come forth. And I think we did send some communique in terms of that particular regard, because at some point we need to find a closure on the matter, also for the government to be able to move forth.
And then on the side of government, in as much as government is welcoming this moment, it is a dark day because 144 people lost their lives. And it was the Gauteng government that sat and decided to go ahead with that premature transfer of these mental health care users. Esidimeni has consistently maintained that she would have been an individual that sat in a budget committee chaired by the then Premier, Mr. David Makhura, pardon me, and that she, as a political principal, has never felt that political principals should be held accountable for what is happening at the level of the department. What is the position of government now, given that we have such a judgment that says, political principle or not, we will start with those at the top before we even look to persecute or prosecute those at the bottom?
No, I think what obviously we have not been favored with today is a full judgment. But I think we just have all of us as South Africans in Gauteng residents to follow suit what the judgment have actually said. That's why the Premier is actually accepting the judgment in its full complexity, even when it basically comes. And I think really for us, what comes out of this is to make sure that we continue to do our level best, but also to deal with an evidence-based type of decision-making, because there are experts that are there that must obviously come and advise. And I think that must actually be adhered to. And I think that's really, for me, the biggest message from here.
Do you believe, though, that it sends a strong message to political principals that they need to act with caution when necessary, or they need to be responsible here, that not just the administrators will be the ones held accountable?
No, indeed. I think at all material times, all of us, we are civil servants. And I think what must be in the foremost in our thinking is really about a people-centered government. So whatever that we do, where exactly do we locate the people? So this is really a very, very important lesson, not only, as you are correctly saying, for the employees of the state, but also those who are in authority must actually, whatever decision that they make, people must always be in the center of those particular decisions.